welcome back to Demigod Debut. I'm Mal, Clarisse defender and longtime Percy Jackson fan.
And I'm Julie, short story enjoyer.
I love it.
I love a little vignette. So these were fun. I like this.
Amazing. And this is a podcast about Julie reading the short stories in the Demigod Files for the first time and enjoying them, apparently.
I had it up. I put it into a PDF because that's how I've been reading the books. And then I just get my little notepad window and I just take notes while I'm reading.
Oh, incredible.
Reminds me of grad school. That's what I do for grad school.
Ah, good times.
Were they?
I don't know. I mean, we did grad school together. We were in the trenches together.
Yeah. Oh, throwback.
Also, I don't know if you read the first page of it, but this book opens with a letter from Rick Riordan talking about, I guess, the purpose of writing this book. And it's here are some never before been told stories about our heroes. And he signs it as the senior scribe for Camp Half-Blood. And I just think this is interesting from a lore perspective because, canonically, does this mean that Percy Jackson is dictating his adventures to Rick Riordan? He is writing them down, or, anyway, I'm just curious at the lore implications of this letter in the start of this book.
I probably didn't read it, honestly. You gotta tell me exactly what to read, or I'm gonna do the absolutely bare minimum.
That's so fair.
Again, just like grad school.
True.
I like the idea of him inserting himself. He's like, I'm actually here. I'm in Camp Half-Blood.
Yeah. Some people are like, Chiron is his self-insert character. Some people are like, Paul Blofeld is his self-insert character. No. His self-insert character is Rick Riordan, the camp scribe.
He's a nobody. He's a nobody that we haven't heard of.
Yeah. All right. So, short story number 1 is Percy Jackson and the Stolen Chariot. And first of all, how did you, documented Clarisse hater, feel about this one?
Ugh. As soon as I saw him describe her, I was like, are you freaking kidding me? I was hoping we were gonna get a return of my girl Rachel. No. It's not my least favorite character, but she's up there.
Oh, but who is your least favorite character?
I'm gonna go Luke. I feel like he's so annoying.
Is Luke your least favorite in a he is a compelling villain kind of way, or in he's a bad character and I hate him kind of way?
I don't think he's necessarily a bad character from a literary perspective. He obviously serves a purpose. I just think
you just think he's the worst.
I don't think Clarisse is necessarily a bad character, but I just don't like bullies, so I don't like her.
Right. Okay, that's fair. Yeah. It is a lot of Clarisse. And I mean, I've said it before, but personally, I'm a little bit obsessed with their dynamic that is just kind of, we can't stand each other, but also, we kind of respect each other and would help each other out when necessary. I don't know. It works for me. I enjoy it.
I do kind of like that. I will give you that. That's a fun dynamic. I don't want this to happen. I know it's not going to, and it would be bad, but it does set a nice dynamic for an enemies to friends to lovers thing. But I don't want that to happen.
It does.
But I do love an enemies to lovers eventual arc of two characters because there's just something spicy about it. It's just
yeah,
we're both assholes to each other.
I think, if Annabeth was just a little bit meaner, or they were kind of
it could work,
rivals for a little while longer, we could have had a good enemies to friends to lovers situation.
Yeah, that would have been good.
Anyway, so our tale opens on Percy in his 5th period science class, where he sees our good friend Clarisse out the window fighting a flock of birds, and he tells the teacher that he's about to puke so that he can get out of class. And I just appreciate the way that he's like, you know how teachers tell you the magic word is please? That's not true. The magic word is puke. It will get you out of class faster than anything else. That's very true.
Have you ever puked at school? I'm just wondering.
I did actually last year get food poisoning on the first day back after winter break.
Oh my god.
So that was good.
That's horrific.
Mm-hmm.
Ugh.
So Percy escapes school and goes outside, which, I don't know, maybe things were different in the 2000s, but I can't think of any school that I have ever been at that would allow a child to just leave in the middle of the day.
There's always someone at the front desk, you have to sign in to get access into the school, or they'd probably be where are you going?
Yeah, so he may have had to use the puke thing again with the guy at the front desk. Gonna puke to get outside. Like a dog, I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, so somehow Percy is outside. And of course, Clarisse is like mad that he's there, doesn't want his help. And then as soon as they defeat the birds together, she like immediately is like, okay, bye.
Iconic, by the way. Love that. Like, peace.
She's like, okay, see you later. And, but Percy is persistent and annoying and gets her to tell him what's going on. And, TLDR, Ares gave her a chance to drive his war chariot, and her immortal brothers Phobos and Deimos, I think, or Deimos, they didn't like that, and they stole the chariot. Percy offers to help her, even though Clarisse isn't his friend, and actually has never been nice to him even once, because he doesn't like the idea of Ares hurting her. And it's very much a like, I hate you, but I hate your dad more kind of vibe.
Mm-hmm.
And then we come face to face with our first of Clarisse's immortal brothers, and it's Phobos, who Clarisse doesn't have a lot of luck fighting, but Percy like immediately is able to get him at sword point and tells him to return the chariot. And Phobos asks, "Who's your little boyfriend?" Of course, we get a like, "He's not my boyfriend. We're not even friends." Because God forbid someone assume that you're friends with Percy. And then, as soon as Percy says his name, Phobos gets a little nervous, which I'm like, it's making a god nervous with just his name, which is crazy.
Big dick energy right there.
Yeah, absolutely. But then this god is like, oh, you're hanging out with a sworn enemy? Dad will love to hear that. And then he starts showing her greatest fears because he's the god of fear. Good times. And he also tells them that they're going to find the chariot at the place where the little wild animals are across the water, which is like just not a very good clue or riddle at all. Like it's just
kind of boring.
Yeah.
Gives me nothing. I feel like he wrote that like after he already decided where he was gonna put it or something. And it feels kind of lazy. Like with all like the prophecy stuff we get in like the books where like the whole time we're kind of like riddling out like what it means. This is what we get.
He's already written so many prophecies, like I don't have anything else, like go to the little wild animals.
Yeah.
And it's not good because Percy figures it out like immediately that it means they have to go to Staten Island.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's also very, very funny that Percy immediately is like, I hate this Phobos guy. He's a bully. As if Clarisse is not also a bully.
Yeah.
As you have so famously said. And then my big question, actually about both of these short stories, and we'll get to both of them, but where in the timeline does this take place, right? Because in the beginning, Percy asks, why would Clarisse be in the Upper East Side in the middle of a random school day? So you would have to assume, like, oh, this is after Battle of the Labyrinth, and he's going to Good High School, because that's the only school he attends that's in the Upper East Side.
Mm-hmm.
But then Clarisse says that taking the chariot is a ritual for children of Ares when they turn 15, and so I guess we're supposed to assume that she's just turned 15. But in The Lightning Thief, Percy says she's like 13 or 14, and she's like definitely canonically at least a year older than him. And like Percy just turned 15 in the end of the Battle of the Labyrinth. Like we went to his birthday party. So then like I guess maybe it's meant to take place between Titan's Curse and Battle of the Labyrinth. And like when I looked it up online, that's what it said. It said it takes place between books 3 and 4, but book 3, he was attending school at MS 54, which is in the Upper West Side. And then, like, you get to the whole train thing, and Percy says that they, like, get on a train. It doesn't specify what train, but then they transfer to the 1 at Times Square. But if he was in the Upper West Side, he wouldn't need to transfer to the 1 because the 1 runs on the Upper West Side. So where are you going to school? How does this affect the timeline? I need answers.
I love when you debunk Rick when he tries to do like New York geography or something. I live for it actually. You're like, that's not true. Like, or like, where is this exactly in New York? Like, we will not stand for this inaccuracy.
No, and the subway is a whole thing too, because if they are in the Upper East Side, so like let's just take it at face value. Percy says they're in the Upper East Side, they're in the Upper East Side.
Yeah.
I assume if they're transferring to the 1, this means they must have gotten on like the Q and taken that to Times Square. But if you were in the Upper East Side, why would you not just take the 4 or the 5, which goes straight to Bowling Green, which is where the Staten Island ferry is?
Yeah.
You could take one train from the Upper East Side to the Staten Island ferry.
You know what? I'm betting he did. Okay, wait. When were these written?
This book came out in between 4 and 5 coming out. So like 09, maybe?
We had Google Maps by then, right?
God, I don't know.
Well, we were what, 11?
February 8th, 2005, Google Maps.
But you know how sometimes you like Google a train? This is my crack theory or whatever, that sometimes when you Google how to get somewhere and you like look at the train, sometimes something weird is happening with the train, or like the timing's a little bit off and it
Mm.
tells you to like take different routes depending on when you look it up. I'm like, I'm wondering if he looked it up one time and it told him to do that because like the queue was running on a different line or something. And he just like left it like that or something. He's like, yeah, that's how you get down the Senai Ferry. And it's like, no, that's not how you usually get down there.
I like your theory. I also would like to see if the subway map has changed.
Hmm.
It's like, let me see. 2000. Okay, 2010 is the closest thing I can find.
Hmm.
Oh, interesting. Okay. Well, this actually makes less sense because in 2010, it looks like the queue ran to Queens instead of running up into the Upper East Side.
Okay.
So it was like just the 456 that ran in the Upper East Side.
Huh.
So if they're in the Upper East Side, there's not even an opportunity to transfer to the one, I don't think, between Bowling Green and the Upper East Side because the one is like on the west side the entire. What was Rick looking at?
We're gonna start a beef with Rick just over his subway knowledge so long and tired that he has to respond at some point. Like this has got to be a recurring thing that he's gonna be like, okay, fine, this is what I did.
Rick, we need you to tell us what's happening
Yeah.
with the subways. So now I have actually less answers than before because now
Yeah.
I don't know what train they even took to get to the one. Anyway, it's not that deep, but also it is. And if Rick didn't want me to dissect every detail of his work, then he should have thought of that before he wrote it.
Yeah.
That's all I have to say.
Cannot get Julie and Mal more sidetracked than if you start talking about the New York City subway.
Yes, I am often distracted by the subway. The other fun detail, not the other, another fun detail I wanted to point out, is that when they get the chariot, they're supposed to take it back to the Intrepid, which, checks out. Big aircraft
Yeah.
carrier turned museum. Sure, why not? And it did make me think, like, would Aries enjoy Fleet Week?
Fleet Week. Oh, a national holiday.
Would you like to explain Fleet Week to the good people who may not be aware?
Would I? Get so much love. Okay. So in New York City, I mean, they do it in other cities as well, but New York City
It's
is
the best one.
obviously the most important place in the world. So, Fleet Week is when during Memorial Day, the week leading up to Memorial Day, a few different ships will dock in New York City full of Coast Guard, the Marines, and the Navy, and some British Royal Navy as well, boys and girls. Very, very cute. Very cute members of different branches of the military. And they do like a big ship tour that's open to the public where you can like see the facilities. You can see like different helicopters and planes they fly and all of that kind of stuff. You get to hold a gun usually, which is one of my favorite parts. And then they also do other things throughout. We'll get to my favorite part. They also do other things throughout the city. Like they do like big band concerts in Times Square. They'll do search and rescue demonstrations. But after when the ship tours are over, the beautiful boys and girls are released onto the city and their nightlife. And when I lived in New York, I would meet a lovely sailor boy and have a boyfriend for a couple of days. Get one of them to buy me a drink, and just you get to stare at them in their dress blues or dress whites, and it's national holiday in my opinion. That's the only time I am incredibly patriotic is during Fleet Week.
And see, because I was thinking about the Intrepid and like Fleet Week being the only time that I've ever like anywhere near that area.
Mhm.
And I was like, oh, Aries would love Fleet Week because, glorification of the military and all that.
Mhm.
But also maybe he wouldn't because, like, the sailors should be off at war, not frolicking around New York City with beautiful girls like Julie.
You know who would love Fleet Week? Aphrodite.
Yes, absolutely.
The whole point of Fleet Week is a fleeting connection. That's what it is. And I'm very sad I won't be able to participate this year.
I mean, you still could. You could come.
I could come. don't think the boy would like that very much.
Oh, right. I forgot about that particular obstacle. Right.
And half the fun of Fleet Week is me finding a boyfriend for her.
Now you unfortunately have a boyfriend for more than a couple of days,
Yeah.
right?
I mean, I could come. I'll leave him at home, but yeah.
Maybe not that. Maybe not that.
But for all the single girls and boys in New York City, or if you want to visit, perfect time because it's almost always great weather because it's hot in New York City. So you can wear tiny little skirts
A win.
and flirt with Navy boys. 10 out of 10 would recommend.
So anyway, they take the train. They transfer at Times Square, which I've already shared some thoughts on, but also I just have to say that that's got to be the worst place to transfer. It's unfortunate that you can connect to pretty much like any train at 42nd Street because it's just the worst. There's so many people and it's so big and you have to walk a ton. Ugh, I hate it. But anyway, they go to the Staten Island Ferry, which, you know, very iconic New York, I want to say landmark. It's not a landmark, it's not a land. New York icon. Institution. There we go.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I just think that this should be utilized more in Percy Jackson books, you know, because I'm thinking of like Spider-Man Homecoming and that fight scene on the Staten Island Ferry and how incredible that is. And now we've got this protagonist who's got water powers. Like, he should have more fights on boats.
Yeah, it's a real lost opportunity.
I mean, I guess we've still got our Kronos cruise ship.
True.
So, you know, of course, we cannot make it through this short story without an Annabeth mention because Percy looks at the Statue of Liberty as they go by it on the ferry and tells Clarisse that the dude who designed it to look like his mom, Athena, because, you know, this is a little tidbit that he learned from Annabeth. And it really just reminds me of that moment in the Titan's Curse where they're all like standing there looking at the Hoover Dam and start sprouting facts that they learned from Annabeth. And they're like, she shares all these facts. It's so annoying. And like, God, we wish she was here. Like, it's just every time someone, I don't know, it just feels so much like they love her and I just appreciate it.
She can do no wrong.
They see her and they love her for her little quirks.
She's perfect. Everybody loves her as they should.
As they should, exactly. And everyone wants to learn her little facts. I love her so dearly.
She's precious.
Then we have to fight a sea monster. And Clarisse's other brother, Demos, is riding it. This was also a fun image because Percy tells Clarisse to grab on and they like jump into the water together. I'm just like trying to picture what does that look like? Like, is he giving her a piggyback ride? Is she just kind of like awkwardly clutching him? Like, what are we doing?
Because I imagine her as like taller than him.
Right.
So I didn't think about that.
Because I feel like she's always described as being big.
Yeah.
So like, I
think of Percy's like a scrawny little kid.
Yeah, if this is taking place between books 3 and 4, book 3 was also when Percy had like a little crisis about like, Annabeth is taller than me now, and like that really disturbs me. So like if this is between books 3 and 4, Percy is probably still short and small.
It's pretty funny actually to picture.
Yeah. And so Short King Percy takes on the sea serpent and Clarisse takes on Demos. And there's some like just very impressive water powers that happen here, which that's another reason why I don't necessarily think that this story makes sense between books 3 and 4. Because I feel like in the last book that we read, Battle of the Labyrinth, he really unlocked a lot of new water powers with like when he was cleaning the stables and when he like made the volcano explode. Like that was kind of a level of power that he didn't have before. And this feels a little more in line with that.
I agree.
But then also, you know, like he picked up the whole creek and threw it at Thalia when they were playing Capture the Flag in like the 3rd book. So like, I don't know. Yeah. The powers are there. It's just the timeline.
I think it's easy to poke holes in this, like timeline wise.
It is. Yeah. I think this is really I guess you can't say this is the first place the timeline falls apart, but this is like when it is really obvious and it kind of doesn't get better and you just sort of have to go with it. Which I am willing to do, but also I have to point out. I don't know. I don't know if there's anything like really noteworthy in this fight because they kind of just scare off both the sea serpent and Demos and make it to Staten Island. And we finally get some good classic Staten Island hate. Like I feel like everybody kind of hates Staten Island. And Percy says it's big and confusing and it all seems to be uphill. And, you know, thinking throwback to when we were getting our COVID boosters there, because it was like the only place we could get appointments, which, you know, I think maybe says something about Staten Island and how it's the only New York City borough to consistently vote Republican, but that's fine.
That's none of my business.
And also that fun shopping mall place that's immediately when you get off the ferry that just never feels like there's anyone there. Maybe I just go at weird times, but
it's always empty.
There's never anyone there. I mean, not to be a Staten Island hater, but I am a little bit.
Rightfully so. No, I think that's valid. You know me, I hate Staten Island.
You know, we do eventually find the petting zoo. Is there actually a zoo on Staten Island? I didn't actually look that up.
I don't think I've been to any of the New York City zoos.
There is a Staten Island zoo. That's crazy. It's an 8-acre urban zoo, open all year except Thanksgiving, Christmas Day, and New Year's. That makes sense. I've been to the Bronx Zoo. The Bronx Zoo is fun.
That's what they call Yankee Stadium.
It's the other Bronx Zoo. So, you know, we find our petting zoo. We find our chariot by the petting zoo. And it's kind of in between the petting zoo and the sea otter pond, which adorable. I love sea otters. I also love that the only camouflage it has is a note taped to one of the horses that says official zoo vehicle. It's just, I don't know, I always think it's silly anytime in the series where someone, usually a kid, points out like what's happening and then their parents like, no.
Yeah.
And then like explains what they're seeing through the mist. It's like you have the little girl here who's like, pony on fire, and her mom's like, no, Jessie, that's an official zoo vehicle. I don't know, it got a giggle out of me. And it's probably just the use of like official zoo vehicle again, because that's not like how people talk.
Yeah.
It gave me a little chuckle. So then as soon as Clarisse gets close to the chariot, Phobos and Deimos appear again, and they start driving right towards Percy. And Clarisse yells, Percy, look out, which he then gets so salty about. And he's like, oh, like I needed someone to tell me that, which just kind of made me think of all the times that Annabeth has shouted out some like very obvious, Percy, run, or like, Percy, look out, Percy, duck. And if it had been Annabeth, in this case, he would have also been like, wow, you're so right and smart, Annabeth. Like, thank you for telling me to get out of the way. But because it's Clarisse, he's going to be pissed about it.
I read it more as like a flip of like, whenever he would say something kind of obvious to Clarisse, she'd be like, well, no shit. Like, now it's just like him doing it to her. I'm like, that's just, they're like siblings. Like, duh. Like, I'm not a moron.
Yeah, siblings is a good vibe. Like, we're gonna beat the crap out of each other.
Yeah.
But also, no one else is allowed.
Yeah, we have each other's backs at the end of the day.
Reluctant siblings. That's Percy and Clarisse.
Yeah.
And then Percy kind of makes an enemy of the otters because he uses their pond water to douse the, like, fire horses. Very uncool of him. And then Clarisse is fighting Deimos and Percy is fighting Phobos, and, like, all of a sudden the chariot turns into a tank, which is awesome. But Percy runs off to the aquarium, and the fish are, like, excited to see him because he's a fish celebrity. Always funny.
It's adorable.
And Phobos rides in on the chariot, but now it's a motorcycle. And it's the same motorcycle that Ares was on in the first book. The one that was said to have a seat that looks like human skin.
Ugh.
The fact that we're doubling down on that detail by saying it again here in this short story, like, I could have forgotten. That that's how that was described.
Yeah. Why do you have to remind us?
But we're bringing it up again.
Why?
And then we get to see, like, Percy's greatest fear. And so Percy kind of sees Camp Half-Blood in flames, and everyone, like, begging him to make the choice, this, like, prophesized choice that's gonna save or destroy Olympus, and he's just, like, frozen. This might be too personal of a question to put on a podcast, but what do you think your fear would be? Like, if you were looking at a fear vision?
It's gotta be with, like, spiders or something. Many-legged bugs. Anything like that?
So actually, your greatest fear is the anthill in the next one.
I literally wrote on my piece of paper, I can't believe you're making me read a bug story.
Yes.
What happens to Beckendorf in that second short story is my greatest fear. Being carried off by giant ants the size of German shepherds. Because you got a big enough German shepherd, it's like the size of me. That German shepherd's on its hind legs, like probably 5 feet tall. Like that's my size. Ugh. Now I'm gonna like freak it.
Apologies for making you live out your Phobos vision.
Yeah.
I feel like mine would be like losing all the people I care about and just like being alone. I hate to be alone. Like, you're gonna make me be alone with my thoughts and not be able to text my friends my every waking thought? No. I would lose it. Yeah, so the fish kind of snap Percy out of his vision just in time for him to not get skewered by Phobos. And then Percy like pretty thoroughly kicks his butt. Like Phobos is not a good fighter, and Percy's just kind of making hit after hit after hit. And then the end of this paragraph is so insane. He says, I couldn't kill him. He was immortal. But you wouldn't have known that from his expression. The fear god looked afraid. Oh my god. That's so intense.
Yeah. This little boy instilled fear into like fear itself. Like that's crazy. Our little Percy.
And he's like 14 or 15?
Yeah. Teenage boys are actually my worst fear.
Yeah, it's kind of like that John Mulaney bit where he's like, 8th graders are the scariest people in the world.
Oh, that's something I'm sensitive about.
And then the way that Percy just like grabs him by the armor and is like, you're gonna disappear now, and you're gonna stay out of Clarisse's way, or I'm gonna give you a bigger scar in a more painful place. Like, it's just very, it's intense.
Mm-hmm. It's like, Percy, do you speak to your mom with that mouth?
And so then Percy takes the motorcycle with the human skin seat and goes to find Clarisse.
Ugh.
It's such a wild thing, I have to keep bringing it up. And he finds her with Deimos, and he has taken the form of Ares and is telling her that she failed him. And poor Clarisse. This is why I am a Clarisse defender at the end of the day. Like, I don't want to defend bullying, but like, I'm gonna a little. Like, she has so clearly been made to feel like she's not enough her whole life. And so then she turns around and she tries to make other people feel like they're not enough. You know, like hurt people and all that. Like, she's a sympathetic bully to me. And I will continue to be a Clarisse apologist.
I see where you're coming from. I'll give you that. Like, the way Ares treats her, I'm like, no, we're not doing this. No.
Agree. Yeah. And you know, I appreciate that Percy kind of helps her to snap out of it, but then he's like, she needs to do this on her own, and he lets her like take down Deimos herself. And you know what? She does. And then we have to figure out how to get back to the city because there is no bridge to Manhattan from Staten Island. And the ferry doesn't take cars. So, you know, we definitely don't take war chariots. Then we get a second just insane water power use by Percy because he uses his powers to allow them to drive the chariot over the water.
I feel like he really gets in his own, like, with being able to use his powers in, like, Battle of the Labyrinth. So this happening before then, it feels a little weird.
Yeah.
Like, that feels like a very advanced
It does.
action to take with your powers. And I feel like he's not there yet until after Labyrinth.
Like, that feels like the actions of a guy after he's caused Mount St. Helens to erupt, not before.
Right. Yeah. Like, I don't know.
And I mean, you know, he says he's exhausted and it's like the hardest thing he's ever done, but like,
He also held up the world for a few seconds.
oh, that's true.
So,
you know, one thing I noticed, not to get ahead of myself, but I noticed in some of these short stories, he does a lot of like, this is the hardest thing I've ever done. This is like the happiest I've ever seen Annabeth look. Or like, this is the scariest thing I've ever experienced. I don't know. There was just like a couple of those moments in here that I was like, we're making a lot of like, this is the most this has ever been. And it's just, I don't know, interesting. Maybe he's just a little prone to exaggerating in these short stories. But honestly, ooh, you know what? We can attribute all the inaccuracies, I guess, and like timeline weird things to the fact that Camp Half-Blood scribe Rick Riordan is documenting this one and is not said to like document the other books. So that explains all the inaccuracies and things.
I like it.
There it is. So it's kind of almost the end here. Percy kind of decides that he's going to clear out before Ares arrives. He says bye to Clarisse and promises he's not going to tell anyone about like what he saw, about what she fears. And he also chooses to tell her about his fear and what he saw with like the camp in flames and everybody pleading for his help. It did make me laugh the way that Clarisse is like, I guess I should say, and Percy's like, I don't think Clarisse has ever said thank you in her life. I don't know why it's so funny to me, but it is. Like, she has no idea how to be a person, but she's learning. And, you know, she kind of sort of asks about his vision with his friends, and Percy assures her that, like, she's one of them, but don't tell anyone or I'll have to kill you kind of situation. And just, she wants friendship and connection so badly, but she's mean as a defense mechanism and is driving everyone away. Like, but she's growing. And I love that for her.
I would like the idea of her like having a really tight-knit group of like girlfriends, but she's only mean to boys.
Yes.
I think that would be funny. That I
Yes.
would be on board with. Clarisse is just a mean lesbian.
That's how I see her. I'm like, Clarisse is a mean lesbian, actually. Chris Rodriguez, who?
Exactly. That was forced. That was so forced.
Heteronormativity. It's strong. So, did this, like, change your feelings towards Clarisse at all, or?
I mean, I still don't like her,
That's fair.
but I feel bad for her.
That's fair.
But I still don't like her.
I'll allow it.
It's like I can feel bad for Luke when like he was being like terrorized or whatever a little in the last book, I feel like, by like Kronos and stuff. But I still think he's garbage. Not that I think Clarisse is garbage, but I still don't like her.
Yeah, you can understand where someone is coming from without condoning their actions. I, however, condone them. Clarisse has never done anything wrong. Just kidding. Any other thoughts on this one?
That's pretty much it. It's good.
All right, so our short story number 2, our bug story.
Ugh.
Apologies for this one. This one is Percy Jackson and the Bronze Dragon. And you know, I'm a big fan of this one, but also some issues, some inaccuracies, so let's get into it. Number 1, okay, the timeline, yet again. Because in the beginning of this one, Percy says that it's the end of June, and he arrived back from his most recent quest 2 weeks before. But that wouldn't be possible if this is the same summer as Battle of the Labyrinth, because when they're at the ranch, Grover says that it's June 13th, and that's the last date that we get.
Mhm.
But then, like, after that point, Percy is gone for 2 weeks with Calypso, and, like, that quest was just absolutely not finished by mid-June. But it doesn't make sense for this to happen the next summer either. And I know you haven't read the next book yet, so I'm not gonna, like, spoil things, but I feel like you're not an idiot. I mean, you can kind of deduce that Selena and Beckendorf are somewhat of an item by the end of this. But in the beginning of The Last Olympian, Percy says that they started dating the previous summer, meaning like Battle of the Labyrinth summer. So somehow this takes place in the Battle of the Labyrinth summer, but also like while they're in the labyrinth. So, or like while Percy is with Calypso. So
He definitely forgot. He definitely forgot when Battle of the Labyrinth happened.
yes, probably.
And he was just like, summertime. We want to do some fireworks.
What could be the dating event of the summer? 4th of July fireworks. Yes. And then just wrote a short story.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think it's gotta be Battle of the Labyrinth summer, and the timeline just got kind of screwy, but also Percy and Annabeth were weird after they came back from that quest. Like, they were dancing around each other, like, not even really acting like they were friends by the end. And you want to tell me that they went to the 4th of July fireworks together? The biggest dating event of the summer?
Mm-hmm.
And the way she's, like, overtly flirting with him, and he's, like, aware that he wants to ask her out. I don't really know who these people are in this story. I think both Percy and Annabeth are a little bit out of character.
Yeah.
But also, Selena and Beckendorf are very cute, and I think it's a good story regardless, even if things are a little odd. Yeah, so we're playing Capture the Flag. What else is new? Percy and Annabeth are playing on different teams, though, so I guess that's new. And I guess, okay, maybe that does make sense with the way that they're kind of avoiding each other in the Battle of the Labyrinth summer, because I could see Annabeth being petty and intentionally, like, not having the Athena cabin work with the Poseidon cabin just so she can fight Percy. That feels on brand.
I could see it.
So our teams are Hephaestus, Hermes, Apollo, and Poseidon on one side, and then Ares, Athena, Aphrodite, Dionysus, and Demeter on the other. This got me thinking my ideal Capture the Flag team, and I think it would need to be Ares, Athena, Apollo, and Aphrodite, because then they could call themselves the A-team, because it's all the gods with A names.
Ooh, that's good.
And, like, you can't lose Capture the Flag if you have a cool name, you know what I'm saying?
That's the rule.
Yeah.
Like, cool name, you're gonna win.
But also they don't need it because they win anyway, but it's fine. So Annabeth, in the beginning of this one, comes up to him like she's done a million other times and is like, hey, Seaweed Brain. And Percy, for some reason, for the first time ever, is like, will you stop calling me that? He's never done that before. Like, literally 2 books ago, when Thalia called him Seaweed Brain, he was like, that's only okay when Annabeth does it. Like, he's okay with Annabeth doing it. So
yeah, all of a sudden you have a problem.
but maybe that's valid for Battle of the Labyrinth Summer too, because all of a sudden maybe there's a less jokey tone to it, and it feels a little less silly affectionate, and now back to mean.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, but he also says he hates it because he doesn't have a good comeback, which that's real.
Yeah.
And the examples that he gives as like nicknames for her are Owlhead and Wise Girl. Both are terrible nicknames.
Awful.
And you know, the fandom tries to make Wise Girl happen a little bit. Stop trying to make Wise Girl happen.
It's never gonna happen.
That's my hot take. Because I am of the opinion that Annabeth is simply unnicknameable. Like, I've seen this new thing online of people trying to like shorten her name to like Anna or Beth, and every single time I'm like, who is that?
Ew.
I don't know her.
I don't like that.
There is, however, like a headcanon that I've seen around that like I do think is kind of funny. It's people saying that her name is actually like Anna Elizabeth, and Annabeth is already the nickname. I think that's kind of funny. Just because it makes her feel real Southern.
Yeah.
She's like, here's my daughter over here, Annabeth. Annabeth, get over here. Gotta come milk the cows.
Oh my god.
I lost my Southern accent like halfway through that.
Wait, I have a question. Did you ever have an accent?
Talk to me in like the 2 minutes after I get off the phone with my mom, and I do. It comes out.
That's funny.
Oh, also, okay. The way that she says, you know you love it when he complains about seaweed brain, that also feels not very Annabeth to me.
No.
She would not say that.
Like, she's not this, like, flirty person.
No, this is wrong. This is not correct.
Yeah, who is this?
However, her, like, shoulder bumping him in her armor that does feel accurate. That feels like Annabeth flirting.
Mm-hmm.
And then, you know, him immediately saying, it's hard for someone to look cute in combat armor, but she pulled it off. Stop it.
He's so in love.
He's so in love. Ugh. And then she tells him that he should pick a safe position, like the right flank, and she'll make sure that he doesn't get pulverized too much, which again, this doesn't feel like Annabeth to me because pulverized is very much a Clarisse word. But playing mind games with him, this is absolutely Annabeth. He really like takes this at face value more than he probably should, because if this was me, I would sit there thinking like, okay, Annabeth said go right, so that means
she wants me to go left, which means I should go right.
Yeah, I was like, so that means she wants me to go left because she's gonna know that I'm gonna think like, don't tell me what to do, and so then I'm gonna go the other way, and then that means maybe I should go right, but then I'm like, but then maybe Annabeth thinks that, and so she really does want me to go. So I would be overthinking it, and I would end up going like up the middle or something, just to be like, take that, Annabeth, and then that actually would turn out to be the thing that she wanted me to do, and she would have predicted my whole downward spiral because she's Annabeth. But you know, Percy just takes her at her word because there is no brain in that head sometimes. Sometimes it is truly seaweed.
Not when it comes to Annabeth.
No, absolutely not. And so Percy goes with Beckendorf, which is fun. I love this duo. And Beckendorf tells Percy that Annabeth definitely likes him because when a girl starts trying to kill you, that means she's into you, which means that Clarisse has been in love with Percy for years. And like, regardless of which summer this is, right? This is post-volcano kiss. Like, a girl kisses you in a volcano because she thinks you're gonna die. That probably means that she is into you. Just a thought.
No, that can't be right.
Percy needs to have the DTR conversation, the what are we?
Yeah.
It's like, maybe she just kissed me as a friend. Which, like, if you're just gonna kiss someone as a friend, that needs to be a conversation beforehand. To be like, I'm kissing you as a friend, you know?
Yeah.
If you just, like, spur of the moment kiss, that's not kissing you as a friend.
No.
That's those repressed feelings coming out, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And we've got another wrench in the timeline here, because Percy says that Beckendorf just turned 18 and is going to NYU in the fall, which is the same thing that he says about Beckendorf in The Last Olympian. So I guess this is supposed to tell us that this is The Last Olympian Book 5 summer, but
I cannot. I have such a bone to pick with like authors and fic writers and everything. Why did they think NYU and Columbia are the only two schools in New York City?
because they are.
No. Where is my CUNY representation? My SUNY representation? There are over 120 colleges and universities in New York City.
Very true.
Give me my City University of New York.
I don't know, I'm just thinking, like, the demigods are supposed to be, like, quote-unquote special or whatever, so I'm like, I don't know, maybe it makes sense that they're going to, like, the Ivies or whatever these, like, things that are quote-unquote special, you know?
Well, New York has one of the best, like, public university systems in the country. I'd probably put it up there with California's. And some of the SUNY schools are very exclusive. Like, SUNY Binghamton is, like, very hard to get into. I want some more love for my public universities,
Yeah, no, I'm with you.
my state schools.
But I also think he's probably looking for like recognizable names to drop into his children's book.
For sure. Like when I used to read Glee fan fiction and they're all going to NYU. And I'm like, give me something
No,
more.
they're going to NYADA. Beckendorf is going to NYADA.
Yeah, that. Some of it was NYU though. It's like, oh, Finn didn't get into NYADA. He's going to NYU. And I'm like, oh my God. Finn cannot get into NYU.
No, he cannot.
Let's be so real.
But yeah, this is a detail that throws into doubt because it's like he can't both start dating Selena here and also be about to go to NYU. Like those two things don't happen in the same summer is the thing.
Come on.
And Mr. about to go to college Beckendorf, who is an expert on women, everything that he's been saying is immediately invalidated by the way that he forgets how to speak as soon as Selena walks by and like bats her eyes at him and calls him Charlie. But you know, in his defense, probably the correct reaction.
For sure.
Like, it's Selena. Come on now.
Yeah.
Oh, and he's also made very cool chameleon armor that blends into the forest, which love. Then we end up at your worst nightmare, the anthill.
Ugh.
And this whole next part is your Phobos fear vision. So you've got, the giant 4-story anthill, myrmidon ant things that are the size of German shepherds. Like, I think bugs are kind of cool, and I still think this is horrifying. But, they collect shiny things, which is relatable, because I also like to collect shiny things. I am no better than a crow. Truly, I believe that is one of the reasons I got into running, because they reward you with a nice shiny thing at the end. And I'm like, yes, I will sacrifice my knees for shiny thing. Anyway, one of the shiny things that the ants have is a giant bronze dragon head. Percy says that this thing is as big as a refrigerator, but then he says that the snout is as long as his body. And I was thinking about the fact that I am taller than my refrigerator. So either Percy is referencing a really big fridge as the size of this, or Percy is really short. Or maybe a secret third option is that I am actually freakishly tall. What if I just dropped the lore? Like, yeah, I'm 6'7", actually.
Can't relate.
You're a short queen.
Does that have the same ring to it?
Doesn't have quite the same ring to it as Short King, but yeah. We could be dealing again with Short King Percy, because...
Well, he's young enough. He might not have had a growth spurt yet, right?
If it's refrigerator size, but then he's only as tall as the snout.
I need a diagram with some measurements.
This is a thing that doesn't matter, but I am going to think about. Anyway, our refrigerator-sized head, Beckendorf believes must be a sign from Hephaestus. Percy has no clue what he's talking about, but he has been here long enough to just kind of go, all right, sure, and roll with it. But he is unable to roll with it for very long because he gets cornered by Annabeth and Selena. And Annabeth is invisible. Selena has color coordinated her armor to match her clothes and makeup because you can't win Capture the Flag if you're not cute.
True.
He also says she looks like guerrilla warfare Barbie, which, what a thing to say.
I love it.
It's a look.
Like goals.
I know, I was thinking about you and your, love of Valentine's Day and everything when he was like, yeah, she's in, pink and red armor, and...
Yep.
I was like, it sounds like Julie. And so they don't get to enjoy their victory for long because Beckendorf gets captured by the ants, which then bite him and spray some goo in his face. Horrifying. Annabeth immediately goes for the dragon head instead of rushing in to save Beckendorf because she's always got a plan and knows that they can't take on the ants alone. And one thing I love is how no nonsense Annabeth is here. Like, she has no sympathy for Selena, who is spiraling and is like, Beckendorf is probably dying. She literally is like, get a grip.
People get in shock. Like, the world doesn't stop. You're on a deadline. You gotta save him within half an hour.
Somebody's got to be the mean one who is focused and does what needs to be done. Annabeth, once Selena has calmed down a little, she tells us what her plan is, and that plan is that according to the lore, our dragon head here is part of this giant metal automaton that used to guard the camp before Thalia's tree created the magical borders that keep them safe now. So the plan is to reassemble the dragon and reactivate it.
Yeah, makes sense.
Super duper. It's not really hard for them to find the rest of the dragon's body, which appears to have been unearthed by Hephaestus, because they're like, it looks like something struck it and unearthed it, and they're like, it must be Hephaestus. Sure. Much like Percy, I'm kind of like, yeah, all right, sure. Too bad none of them have any experience reconnecting an automaton's head. because, Annabeth is more experienced with ideas. And then really love how, in an effort to, like, give Annabeth some confidence, Percy's like, well, if I had to pick anyone in the world to reattach my head, I'd pick you.
Like, aw? Question mark?
I mean, Selena thinks it's cute because she's like, aw, Percy, that's so sweet. And Annabeth blushes. So, like, it works. And, she reattaches the head. They have to, like, twist the eyes to turn it on. I don't know. At this point, I'm just kind of, like, taking everything that they're saying as, like, you know what? Yeah, might as well. And so the dragon kind of crawls out of its dirt hole. It's massive and it's cool, and it has no wings. And so I just have to ask, like, a dragon with no wings, that's just a lizard. This is just a really big lizard.
Not a dragon.
Maybe I'm just picturing, the reptile that is most familiar to me, but like
Mhm.
bearded dragon has dragon right in the name. So to me, this is a giant metal bearded dragon because there's nothing in this description that suggests that it is not a bearded dragon. It's like
Mhm.
bronze and gold scales, legs the size of tree trunks, steel talons, tail as long as its body. Like, that's bearded dragony. Even the breathing fire thing, like, my bearded dragon can just do that. So it's a giant bronze bearded dragon. Thank you. So that is how I will be picturing this
Love.
for all time now. Of course, first thing it does, it like kind of maybe starts to come after Percy, but Selena commands it to defend camp and rescue Beckendorf, and surprise, surprise, it listens. Curious. So they have to show the like our big bearded dragon to the anthill, and they basically use it as a distraction to lure the ants out so they can go in, which excellent plan by Annabeth, by the way. Shout out to her. And Percy gets kind of mean about children of Aphrodite here.
Yes, I noticed that.
Like, he makes sure to point out, this is the first time I've ever followed a child of Aphrodite into battle. And then when Selena is more focused on finding Beckendorf than the jewelry, he's like, oh, first time for everything. A child of Aphrodite not focused on jewelry?
Like, screw you, Percy.
Who asked you?
Like, ugh. They're not all superficial.
Women contain multitudes. Thank you. She can care about jewelry and Beckendorf.
Yeah, God.
And lead everyone into battle. Thank you.
Stupid seaweed brain.
It's giving
Misogyny.
2010s depictions of women, yeah. So, we managed to find and rescue Beckendorf pretty easily, honestly. But Beckendorf is a little stressed to learn that they reactivated this dragon because automatons can get a little unpredictable when you just like turn them on. And unpredictable it is. He gives it this like crazy command and it starts shooting lightning, which, bearded dragons just do that.
Mm-hmm.
And also it's like it's kind of chasing them around. But they manage to stop it because Percy uses himself as a distraction and like cuts off its toe, and so Beckendorf has time to deactivate it. They talk about, oh, could we fix up the dragon for our upcoming battle with Kronos, or like maybe we should venture into the anthill to get weapons. But we never really like follow up on these things because most importantly, Selena then decides to tell Beckendorf that him taking down the dragon was the bravest thing she's ever seen. And then he does the bravest thing that any teenage boy has ever done and asks the girl he likes to the firework. We love to see it.
Love it.
And also, for some reason, some of the ant goo has eaten through Percy's shoe, which, like, I don't even remember him being hit with ant goo or anything.
Blech.
By the time I get to this moment where he's like, I no longer have a shoe, I'm like, wait, when did you get hit? But so he's got to, like, lean on Annabeth to get out of the woods, and he's thinking about how jealous he is that Beckendorf was brave enough to make a move, and Annabeth tells him that, well, Beckendorf taking on the dragon isn't the bravest thing I've ever seen, because actually, Percy, you distracting the dragon was pretty brave too. And I'm like, girl, that is not the bravest thing you've ever seen Percy do.
Yeah, come on.
It's like you're laying it on pretty thick here.
Yeah.
But also Percy can't accept any positive praise ever, and he's like, or maybe it was just really stupid. Take the compliment. From someone who can't take a compliment, take the compliment. And then their faces are centimeters apart, and he's maybe gonna ask her to the fireworks. But then, for the second time, they get interrupted by some of Annabeth's siblings. Because remember last book, they were having a moment in the Athena cabin, and he was like holding her, and then Malcolm came in. Stupid Malcolm. Go away, Annabeth's siblings. No one wants you here. Just kidding. I am actually very curious about the lore of the Athena campers. Like, I would love to know more about them, actually. But in this situation, no one wants you to get out. Turns out, the game isn't over. And after all of that, they're still gonna take Percy and Beckendorf to jail. and they're just going to jump right into the capture the flag game. One of my favorite parts of this story is the way that, for a moment, Percy truly believes that Annabeth planned all of this. He just thinks that she's that good.
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe he just thinks that she's, like, she would risk all of their lives in pursuit of a capture the flag victory.
You know what? Fair. Very competitive.
Honestly, I'd do it too, to win. Percy and Beckendorf are not pleased by this turn of events, and they complain all the way to jail. And as she leaves, Annabeth tells Percy she'll see him at the fireworks. And he's like, did she just ask me out? It feels very like 2000s teen rom-com kind of situation.
Mm-hmm.
And then the boys have to sit in jail while the girls win. Final thought here. I just have to say, well done, Selena, because what a way to begin a relationship. You know, really show him who's boss. Like, yeah,
yes,
I'll go out with you, but also I'm going to take you to jail. XOXO.
Mm-hmm.
Iconic.
She's an icon. We love Selena.
Selena, the woman you are. So that's the Bronze Dragon.
I enjoyed it despite all the bugs.
Too many ants. So of the two stories, which do you prefer?
I did like the Bronze Dragon more.
Interesting, even despite the bugs. Well, I guess the first one had Clarisse, so it was like trade-off, Clarisse or bugs.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, this was fun. I enjoyed the short stories. Something different.
Well, and there is one more, and I think the last one is a banger.
Okay.
Next week, we'll be reading The Sword of Hades.
Oh, that just sounds good.
And then honestly, you can count this as a 5th book finished, because this is technically a book. But actually, there's like crossword puzzles in the book, so maybe you can't finish until you do the crossword puzzle.
Send me the crossword puzzle and I'll print it out and I'll do it.
Don't joke about that, I will send it. Oh, there's a word search?
I love a crossword puzzle. No, I'm 100% serious. I love word puzzles.
Oh, okay. So. I will send you the word puzzles.
Last year for Christmas, I had my sisters, they got me a book of New York Times crosswords.
Incredible.
I was like, that's what I want.
Well, yeah, once you've read all 3 short stories and done the crossword puzzle, 5 books down.
Yeah. There we go.
All right. Well, it's been a delight as always.
As always.
See you.
Goodbye.
Hi, thanks for listening. As always, you can find us on Instagram, Twitter, and Threads at DemigodDebutPod, and for possibly only a few more days, you can also find us on TikTok at DemigodDebutPod as well, or maybe it won't actually be banned here in the US. If you liked what you heard, please rate or review wherever you are listening, and we'll be back with the remainder of the Demigod Files next week. See you later. Bye!